Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us at the Microsoft Fabric UK user group. I'm your host, Leon Gordon, and I'm here with my co-host, Pragati Jain.
Hey, Leon, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Apart from the behind the scenes technical difficulties we had prior to going live, absolutely fantastic. Thank you. How about you?
Yeah, but we managed to get you right on time, so that's the big thing. Yeah, all well with me. Today the weather is much better to what we had yesterday, so yeah, I'm thankful UK is not that hot today.
Agreed. And we were discussing behind the scenes as well that today there's no European football also. So it's good for both myself and Gregor. I don't think you're a football fan, Pragati, am I right in thinking?
No, I'm not.
Excellent. So we have been following the Euros, and so we're happy there's not a game this evening, and hopefully that means that even more people are able to join us for what's going to be a fantastic session. Those of you may remember that we had Gregor here with us to discuss what I would call, since it's been released, a must-have Power BI external tool, and we're back here today to go into more detail around some of the enhancements where we look at Measure Killer 2.0. So let's bring Gregor onto stage. Hi, Gregor.
Hello. Hi. So good to
Thank
see
you
you
very
guys.
much for joining us.
Oh, same here.
Thank you.
Thanks for agreeing to speak.
Actually, we called the session Measure Killer 2.0, but actually we're almost releasing 2.3 now because
Wow.
we've done a lot of work over the last few months, and it will come out soon, maybe in 1 or 2 weeks.
Oh, that's
fantastic.
cool. So we can have you
Well,
again, hopefully, for Measure Killer 2.3.
Oh, I'm gonna show 2.3 today.
I was going to
sure.
say, hopefully we get some
Oh.
inside
So
info.
this is really
Excellent.
cool. So before coming out, the version hasn't come out, but you'll still show us things here. Wow, that's pretty good.
Yeah, it might be a little buggy here and there, but let's see.
It's fine. I use Measure
I'm
Killer
excited.
a lot, so it has become one of my favorite tools. So pretty much looking forward to what you're going to share today.
Cool. All right.
Perfect. Over to you.
Sorry. Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Gregor. We'll hand over to you and just go ahead and share your screen, please.
Okay, sure. So I want to start with the basics for the ones who have not seen Measure Killer yet. So it's an external tool for Power BI. As I just said, we're going to release this version 2.3 very soon, probably already next week. What generally Measure Killer does for you is it analyzes your report and model. It's basically in the most basic function. It finds all the unused measures and columns for you, and then it helps you kill or remove them automatically. So as you can see here, this is the client installer that I have here on my computer. So you can download it from measurekiller.com, or you can get it from the Microsoft Store. It's also there for download. And so far in the previous version, we've had everything here until the tenant analysis. So these are really some advanced things that we're doing. And now in this new version, we also built a mode for some more old-fashioned applications analysis services. So we have on-prem and Azure analysis services here, where we can find everything that is used there across all the reports, all the Power BI reports, basically to help you optimize the analysis services model and make it smaller, and maybe also save some money along the way. But let's just take a look at this sales report that I have open here. I can either launch Measure Killer through the external tools ribbon. Of course, I need to have it installed on my computer, or I can just start it from opening up Measure Killer, and then it will connect to this Power BI instance. And if you have any questions, by the way, just put them in the chat, and I think Pragati and Leon will let me know, because I cannot really see anything since I'm sharing. So I selected this first mode, and maybe I should quickly explain the difference of those ways of running Measure Killer. So this is for a single report that I have locally on my computer. I want to analyze this Power BI report. I want to see what is used and what is unused, and then take out maybe the things that are not used anywhere. So I'm running this. Measure Killer detects that there's a sales report open here on my computer. I click on next, and then I just run this thing. And within a second or so, you can see I get this nice output here. And let's take a look at this execution summary first. This is really where I can see immediately how much of the size of my model is actually used anywhere and how much is unused. So in this case, half of the size of my model is not used anywhere. And here in this table, we can also see column by column. So you can also see, for example, the calculated columns here are also measures, even though they don't have a size, they're listed here. And then we can see if they are used somewhere or not. And let me sort by the ones that are used the most. So just to explain to you how it works. This measure, this profit measure here, you can see it's used 12 times. It's used 4 times in other measures. So those are measures that are referencing the profit measure. And here, for example, I can also right click and I can say, okay, let me take a look at this month over month profit measure. And then I can see the DAX expression here. So here now I can basically either search or I can see it pretty clearly here that it is using the profit measure. So I can even double check if what Measure Killer is saying is true in that case. And also I can see in which visuals it's used. So how the tool works is that it takes all the artifacts, everything that is in our model, measures, calculated columns, everything that makes up our data model. And then it's searching in the model, meaning in relationships, things like this, column sorting, but also it searches through the report. If you use something in a visual, if you are using a column as a filter, we can search here. Let's see if something is used as a filter. Oh, now I can see all the columns that are used either in visual level filters or page level filters. So it tries to cover everything so that basically when Measure Killer says it's unused, and we will remove those, nothing will break down. Basically, we have no negative impact, at least for the current state of the report. Maybe you will need it later, but we want to take out everything unused to also maybe comply with the best practice that we have in Power BI to only load into the model whatever we actually need anywhere. And this is really hard to achieve in real life because we don't really know yet a lot of times when we build a report what we will need. So this tool really helps you to take out everything currently unused. So some things here that are new, that are not out yet, is, for example, this best practices. So we are running the best practice analyzer here, where we can see all the best practices according to Microsoft. It's also documented here. And there are some that are worse than others. And then basically it's listing here how severe the rules, which rules are violated and where they are violated. So you can always see what to improve in your report, and then also we give it a score. So in this case, it's actually good because the violation is not so great, but it could also be much worse, of course, if you're doing a lot of things wrong. So that's best practices. That's new. That will be released in version 2.3 because currently we have version 2.2 out. But like I said at the beginning, in about 1 week, we will release this version. When I have all those used and unused, then the next step would be maybe to remove the stuff. So here now I can kill, that's where the killing comes into place. I can automatically kill measures and calculated columns using the tool. So I can either do it inside Measure Killer, or I can generate a C# script to execute this somewhere else. Then I will just have a list of all the unused measures and calculated columns. And those are only 3, right? But we have a lot more. And those are the data columns, right? The data columns, meaning the ones coming into Power BI through the M code, those we cannot remove directly, but I will show you how that works. So let's first remove the unused measures and calculated columns from our model. And I will just open up the measures so we can see what's going on. And since this version is not fully tested yet, we might see some errors or something, but I'm just gonna try to kill everything here. And I think I have to do select all. And now I'm gonna kill. And let's just see, for example, we have this year-to-date profit and the used and unused. Those are the ones that should go away. And then we have this calculated column that we don't see. It's somewhere in those tables. So I'm gonna go to kill, and you can see, boom, it says it's removed. And as you can see, it already updated my model inside Power BI Desktop. So some of you might say, oh, wow, then things are gone. What if I made a mistake? Well, we also built the restore functionality. So you can see here that whatever I just removed, those are those 3 artifacts here, they are backed up. So I can see when this was removed, this is the name of my computer. I can see it was removed from this report. So in my case, I have all the things I ever removed in this list here. And this is basically stored on the machine where you run MeasureKiller. And if you have multiple devices like me, you can also specify a OneDrive folder. So in my case, I have this OneDrive folder, as you can see here. So all across my devices, I will get all the backups from MeasureKiller in there, so I can restore stuff from anywhere. Do we have any questions so far?
Nothing currently, Gregor, that we're aware of coming through in the chat. Very much the commentary is how good the tool is. We can show some of these on the screen as well. So coming in from, let's take a look. So Hakeem, very, very useful tool. So thank you very much for the feedback there as well, Hakeem. So let's carry on, please.
Sure. So now let's come to the data columns, right? The ones coming in from Power Query. Those we cannot just kill with a click of a button, by the click of a button. What we have currently in all released versions is that we get all the tables that have unused columns, and they're listed here in this dropdown. And then I can do one table at a time. I can basically copy the M expression, and I go into Power Query. And what happens is, you can see this is F sales main. So this is my fact table. I go into the advanced editor and I just paste this code from MeasureKiller. And what it does is it takes the old M code and it adds a step at the end where it removes the columns that are unused. So I'm going to apply this. You can see it removes those columns. Then I can hit close and apply, and those will be gone. And of course, then everything should still work as expected, but my model is now smaller. And of course, this is still manual. And what we built here to what we were always hoping to do is this, as you can see, one-click optimization, where we will generate a new file where everything is already removed. The only downside of this is I need to have a PBIP, so it doesn't work for PBIX, and in this case, this is a PBIX. So I need to save this as PBIP, then run MeasureKiller, and then I can generate a new PBIP folder, and then basically it will give me this new folder with everything removed automatically, so I don't have to do it manually in case I have a lot of tables with unused columns. Maybe one more thing I can show, and this is also something we have worked on, is the DAX expressions. This is also in the version that is out. I can see all the DAX at once. And for example, here I can search for, let's see, I have to go to expression. For example, I can see who is doing an all filter, or do we have a sum X? So I can search all the DAX code at once from my whole model, all measures and calculated columns. And I can also see where it belongs to get some other information. And here we also have a function to identify duplicate DAX expressions. This is still very early in this model. Actually, there's nothing. There's not so much here. But we're also trying to build this out more to identify duplicate expressions to help you maybe merge together some things that have basically the same expression, but maybe the syntax is a tiny little bit different. Then we also have the same thing for the M expressions. So I can search all across my model, all the M expressions. For example, I can see which data sources I'm using in which queries, especially if you work with databases and different views. This can be handy to search, for example, for a certain view and then find in which queries, in which tables this view is used. And then you know maybe where to adjust it in case maybe you haven't set any parameters or something. One more thing that I always like to show, and I'm not sure if this is fully working yet. Actually, let's see. Yeah, so no, this is not completely working yet. We still have to do something here, but basically what if analysis does is it tells you before removing something. For example, you want to remove a page, and it will tell you, oh, you will save this much space in your model if you remove this page, because maybe some columns, in this case 1.9 megabytes worth of columns, are only used on this page. So if I want to remove this page, I will already know before how much size I will be able to save when I take out this page and then basically run Measure Killer again and remove all the unused columns. And something really interesting here too is I can open up this page and then I can see all the columns and measures that are used to build this page. So I can see everything that I need to keep a certain page alive, including all the dependencies. For example, I can see that this profit margin measure is using the revenue measure. And so I can see this whole hierarchy basically. And in this view, for example, here I can also see, I don't know, for relationships and what is used where and so on. But yeah, this is still not fully working in the new version yet. All right, that's it for the main analysis of a single report. So Measure Killer has a free version and a paid version. The free version is basically everything that you do locally. So if you want to analyze a single report locally, or if you want to analyze a shared model and you can get the data set, you download the data set and all the thin files or the connected reports to your computer, you can also use the second mode for that. That's also part of the free version. And then I also want to show some things that we're doing in the Power BI service. This is really advanced stuff, I would say. And this tenant admin mode is built for shared data sets. So for example, let me pull up Power BI. See this weather data set, for example, here. It is a model that has 2 paginated reports and 1 Power BI report connected. But then if I open up the lineage, I can also see that there are also reports connected in other workspaces, not only the Brunner BI projects workspace, but also this weather workspace. Even in my personal workspace, there's a report, and in the Measure Killer testing workspace. So this mode that I'm going to show now is really built to analyze a centralized golden data set or more sophisticated shared model, basically, that has been in the Power BI service for a while. You're always adding stuff, new data is coming in, you're adding new columns, new tables, and nobody is really sure what is used there, what we really need. And it's risky to remove something because some things could break down. So for that, we built this mode, and there are 2 different ways to run this. So this will now run in the Power BI service. I will have to authenticate with my user account, and then Measure Killer will use those privileges, this access token, to run the API calls that it's doing. The differences between those two modes is one is the one mode for normal users. A normal user in our language is somebody who has access to a couple of workspaces, either contributor, member, or admin access. It doesn't really matter, but who is not a tenant administrator or a Fabric admin. And then I will only be able to search the workspaces that I have access to, of course. But if I run the tenant admin mode, and that's what I want to show here, I can have access. So now I'm gonna log in, or I'm gonna authenticate. Now Measure Killer is doing some API calls. I have to select the data set that I want to analyze. So it's this weather data set, which is in the Brunner BI projects workspace. I'm gonna click on next. And now I'm already getting something that I don't have in Power BI anywhere. Basically a full lineage of everything connected to my semantic model. You can see this is the weather data set here. And then there are a bunch of reports connected. Some of them are Power BI reports, but also the paginated reports. And you can see it's even showing me here which access I have in that workspace. So it's showing me stuff where I don't even have access with my personal user. And why it can do this is because we're using the admin API call. So it's using my admin privileges to run those API calls to find the whole lineage. But still, my personal user is not in that workspace. So basically what Measure Killer will do is will grant me access temporarily to fetch the metadata of those reports where I don't have access. And of course, the ones I have access to as well, to be able to analyze what is used in those reports. And then it will take away the permissions again if I want to. So here I can do a holistic, a real analysis of everything that is connected, because we don't want to break anything. And if I miss a report, maybe some column, some measure could only be used there. And I want to make sure nothing breaks down. So that's why the best way is to run it as an admin. What I can do here as well is I can add local files. So if I want to, I can add a Power BI file. For example, I can just add, this is a random file now, but I just want to show you how this works. I can just add it here. If something is not in the Power BI service yet, I can just drag and drop it in here, and then it will be part of the analysis. This is some other model actually, so it doesn't really have anything to do with this. So I'm going to take it out. But the goal here is to add everything that is somehow pulling data from the centralized model. And this doesn't have to be a Power BI or PageNet report. It could also be an Analyze in Excel file. And for those, well, they will not be in the Power BI service. So they will be on somebody's computer, some finance people building pivot tables on top of the data set. And what we built here is to get the activity logs. So here, let me just start this because this will take some time. Here I can now fetch the activity logs from the Power BI tenant to find out who is doing Analyze in Excel on top of my data set. And every time I do this, Measure Killer is building up a small database. So you can see I did this already in May, and I did one or 2 days in June, and then I can see which days were complete. But generally, it can only get the last 30 days. So if I do this every 30 days, I can build up a long history of activities. And maybe we can just stop it now because I just want to demo how this is working. So now you can see it did the last couple of days. And the today is always incomplete by design. And then now, for example, I can see, oh, my weather data set. I can see that my colleague Klaus he had an activity for Analyze in Excel here on the 15th of May, basically where he created an Analyze in Excel file on top of this model. And the whole point is to find all the users doing that and then basically copy their email addresses to reach out to them to say, hey, are you doing something critical here? Can you send me the Analyze in Excel file? Because I want to drag and drop it in here to make sure whatever you're doing will also work once I clean up this centralized model. So let's run this analysis. And as you can see here, it's going to grant me access to the workspaces that I don't have access to with my user. It's using those admin permissions that I possess for that. And then it's just getting the metadata of the semantic model and all the metadata of the reports that are connected. And you can see it's quite fast. And then it's asking me to remove the access again to those workspaces. And I say, yes, I want to remove it. And then basically it's doing the measure killer logic. And it's telling me that, actually, this is the wrong data set. It's telling me that only 60% of the size of my model is used all across those reports that I analyzed. And 39% is actually unused. So I have a potential of like, yeah, almost, I don't know, 60% or something to increase or to decrease the size of my model to basically make everything more faster and smaller by just taking out the things that are not needed anyway. In this mode, I can also run multiple models. You can see there are also two other models here now. That's because somebody is doing a direct query on basically a composite model on top of this parent model. So even if we have those downstream models, we're analyzing those. Even if somebody is renaming a column and then using the new column in a report, we will track this change. And the whole point here is that I can also analyze other models. I can basically analyze 10, 20, 30, 40 models at a time to see for all those models how much is used and how much is unused, and to see basically what my potential is for optimization there. So once I, for example, go into the capacity metrics and see which models are the biggest troublemakers in the tenant, then I can run those through Measure Killer here, and I will see, okay, those are only 20% used. This one is 50%. This one is 60%. But in the end, we should go above 90% potentially to 100% to have a perfectly optimized model in the sense of not having any unused columns. Here in the online mode, of course, I can also search the DAX expressions. For example, here, it could also be that a certain expression, measure or whatever, can be part of the report. So we can also see some artifacts, some measures or whatever calculated tables belong to the dataset. But some other ones, and this is still a little buggy, as you can see, the text is just, the expression is just very big. So it's increasing the width here. But I can see also report level measures here, right? So I can see that some people built measures that only exist in the reports and they are not part of the model. Let's see if we have, oh, we have even some duplicate DAX expressions here. So then I can see which measures those are, or in this case, it's actually a calculated column that have exactly the same or basically the same DAX expression. So that is also something I can take a look at. M expressions are here too. You can also see if it's a hidden or unloaded query, or if it's actually loaded into the front end of Power BI. So this is basically what we have here. The killing in the online mode can be done as well, but it's more risky, I would say. So here, for example, if I want to kill something, it will write to the XMLA endpoint So it's going to do an XML write operation on top of this model. So I have to be really careful there, because if I do this, then, for example, I cannot download the data set anymore. There are some limitations imposed by Microsoft about on this. So you have to be really careful here. But of course, we also have the restore functionality, just like in all the other modes. I'm gonna show you what we're doing in this tenant analysis. This is where we scan the whole tenant. This is really the coolest thing we have built. So I'm gonna start running this. It will take a few minutes because I'm basically analyzing all reports and all models in the whole tenant. And maybe while this is running, we can also take any questions in case there are any. If not, I can start explaining what we will see here.
Happy to go into the explanation, Gregor.
Cool. So you can see this is running in the background now. So it's getting all the metadata of all the reports and all the models. So this is really designed to run at scale for potentially thousands of reports and models. And some of them are also not possible, like some report usage metrics, for example. We cannot really query those models. Also, the default models in Fabric, right? Those are kind of not equal to a proper semantic model. And also some reports, for example, if a report is broken, you cannot even open it, then we will also get an error here. So we built some stuff here also for testing purposes. That's why you will see all kinds of errors here as well. But this mode here is built to give you a really nice overview of your whole Power BI and Fabric estate. So we can see how many workspaces we have, how many pro, personal. You can see the number of data sources, data marts, data flows Gen 1 and Gen 2, how many data sets, reports. All the Fabric items are here as well. And so you can see now it's around at 60%. We can, while this is running, I can already explore a little bit the tenant. So for example, I can open up a workspace here, and I can see exactly that it has some data flows inside. I can see the reports. I can see, for example, which users have access to that workspace. And then we also have users with limited access. So this is a user that only has access on a certain artifact. So in this case, Sebastian, my colleague, has basically access to a data set. He has read, write, and reshare on the data set, but he's not inside the workspace. So he doesn't have workspace level permissions, but only for this one artifact. And for example, I can, I don't know, see, I have a Fabric trial. What is inside those? I don't know. I can just play around with this and basically search, for example, where do I have data flows? And then let's just see, search all levels. And now I can see which workspaces contain data flows. We also have the lineage view here, which is really cool. So for example, for the weather data set that we just analyzed in more detail, I can open it up and I can see that it has also a refresh schedule here every day at 8 a.m. It will refresh. It's using 2 data flows. So 2 data flows are the sources of this data set. And those data flows are coming from, or they're using some SharePoint data and also a weather API. And then we can see those downstream models. So somebody also built those composite models that I already showed before. And then, of course, we have the reports that are connected to those models. So it's really nice little overview to show you what is happening with this model, how it is connected in the tenant. And for the data sources, so for all data sources that we have, we can also, for example, see where those sources are used. So I can see this weather API is used in 3 Power BI semantic models and in 1 data flow. And that's also a good way to explore the impact that, for example, a change of a data source has, or maybe it's just an orphaned data source that is not used anywhere. That's possible too. Let's see if we have, yeah, this one, for example, here you can see it has nothing inside, it has nothing connected, things like that. The Access tab is something new, so this hasn't existed in the previous version. This is really cool as well, I think, because we can see here, for example, we have different views, and I'm going to start with the users. You can see I have all the users or AD groups or Entra groups in our tenant. Our tenant is quite small. We're only a team of 4 people. But I can open up my user and I can see, oh, I have access to 39 workspaces, 127 models, 130 reports, 8 data flows, and I have access to 1 reflex item. And then, of course, I can also see which access rights those are. And for example, for the workspace, I can see where I have admin or contributor. I can filter by capacity. And everything here, of course, can also be exported. So you can do this huge scan of a tenant and then also export everything as a JSON for documentation purposes. I can also find, for example, if some users have build permissions, or yeah, somebody is basically only allowed to read a certain model, that I can also find here, for example, in this model tab. Now I think it's finished. So it's also for all the things that it cannot analyze, it's giving me the errors with the exact reason why it was not able to do this. And then, of course, for the workspaces, it gives me access to, it's now asking me to remove the access again, because you can see I can also search personal workspaces here. And of course, maybe I don't want that. I can turn that off in the settings actually. But our goal is to provide a full analysis of a Power BI tenant, including all premium, all pro, and all personal workspaces if you want to search through them. What I can do here, for example, is I can also search for the permissions. Read Explore is, for example, a build permission. So you can see here that this group, and here we can also see the details, like you can see the, I don't know, the identifier, what it is, the name, all this metadata. I can see this group is authorized, or somebody gave build permissions on top of this model to this Entra group. And of course, here would also be individual users if somebody gave those artifact level permissions. And what is maybe very interesting from a governance perspective for all the admins out there is if somebody, for example, is giving access to something in a personal workspace, I can here filter the personal workspaces. And then I can see, for example, that in my personal workspace, I gave Pedro read access on 1 report. And Klaus, since he's an admin, basically he granted himself access to my personal workspace. But Pedro is highlighted here because he has access to only 1 report. So if people are sharing stuff from personal workspaces with other people in the organization, this is a huge headache for the admins a lot of times. Then I would see that here, that these users have that access. And then, of course, we also have data flows and so on. But this analysis is now finished in the background. So I have more tabs now. So the tabs I saw before, those are available almost immediately. And then when it does the more deep analysis, I can also see now, for example, all my models. And this is really cool because here we also have the best practices. This is completely new in this version, where we basically score a semantic model in terms of how many best practices have been violated how many times. So you can see those are all the semantic models in the tenant. And we can see how big those models are, how calculated columns we have, how many reports are connected. And then, of course, also who is kind of responsible for that model. Is there a refresh scheduled? And then we have this score in terms of the best practices. And I think we should have, oh yeah, here. So if I right click on the model, I can also see which best practices are violated and how often. So I can see here that, yeah, the local date tables or whatever or no, this is some default summarization. This is violated a lot of times, and then we multiply it by 3, and basically we come up with our own little rating. If you have, I think, more than I don't know, 500 or 800 or something, it's like you're a Power BI criminal. And this is one of the worst models we have in our tenant for testing purposes. The report built by a Power BI criminal, you can see it has a really, really bad score. But also the guys from InfoRiver actually have a bad score. I'm only using this to test some custom visuals actually, but I never realized that this is also violating some best practices. It's basically, if you have a lot of local date tables, you're already in trouble. So if you haven't deactivated the auto date time, and this criminal report, you can see that only the local date tables are 90 megabytes. So more than half of the size of the model is completely useless local date tables. But then even in the normal tables, somebody built 400 calculated columns here. Oh my God. That's why this has such a horrible score. And of course, then you can maybe talk with this person and say, hey, what's going on? Do you need some help optimizing your model? So what I can do here, of course, is if I find some interesting stuff or I'm looking for something, I can search for example, local date tables on a tenant level. So now I can see all the models that contain local date tables. And you can see some of them are actually also green, maybe because they only have one local date table. Yeah, it's just, so the more you have, of course, the more you will be punished by the, oh, this one also has only one, the Zebra BI, and it has a good score. So maybe, yeah, this only has one, but some other ones just have so many local date tables, and then of course it gets a worse score. And for example, what I could also do is many-to-many relationships. Here I just have to change the column. So yeah, we can see if they're active or inactive. Maybe those are fine, but of course, if you have a lot of them, maybe you need to take a look at your model, or also if you have one-to-one relationships, maybe that's a good case for merging it into merging the tables together. So we're just trying to expose some things that we've seen to be problematic. And of course, those best practices in the end come from Microsoft anyway. We're just aggregating it for all those models. All right, now let's switch over to the reports. So here also we will see all the reports in the Power BI tenant. And what we can do here is we can see, for example, how many visuals does a report have. And this criminal report, as you can see, has over 1,000 visuals. We also have to say that it has 52 pages, so that's also really a lot. But then we can see that the top page, one page has 267 visuals. So I can even see what type of visuals those are. It's 130 buttons. So yeah, basically here you could also, if you see some reports or models that are creating problems, maybe it's just because of the sheer amount of visuals on one page or generally in the report. So maybe this will also help to just analyze that. What I can do here as well is you can see we have custom visuals here too. So we have some really nice search for custom visuals here. For example, if I search for Azure Map, you can see I can see exactly which reports contain the Azure Map visual, or we have this flow map, flow visual. And of course, it could also be some. So I can basically search my whole tenant for different visuals, different custom visuals. And then I can, for example, even search for uncertified. I can see which visuals are uncertified and which visuals are certified. The certified ones have this little blue stamp, as you can see here, and the uncertified just don't have anything. And then I can see in which reports this is. Of course, this is a little messy here. That's why we also have those exports just for example, the custom visuals. And then you will see only the reports that contain those things like that. Yeah. Then, just like before, we also have the DAX and M expressions. Before we had it for one model and all the connected reports. And now, of course, we have it for the whole tenant. So this is quite a lot. And of course, this table will be huge. Even in our tenant is quite big. But now, of course, if I want to search for some, I don't know, something specific, dynamic color, I don't know. I just saw this. That's why. So I can then search, I don't know, who is doing some specific thing in a DAX expression, or I don't know, all. Actually, this. Oh, sorry. I actually have to go over here. Yeah. So, for example, here I can search for this dynamic color, or I can search for who is doing all in the DAX, or who is doing divided by. So this is maybe also something that is not perfect. Of course, it also gets stuff inside the measure. It doesn't have to be a divided, but here, for example, I can also say, okay, maybe this is something that I need to take a look at. Just some things that maybe you want to search on a tenant level, you can do that here as well. And of course, the M expressions maybe make a little more sense. Here I can see who is doing, I don't know, let's see, maybe data flows. Do I have the old? There's multiple data flows connector. I think there's Power BI dot data flows. Oh yeah, so we have Power BI dot data flows, right? And then we also have Power Platform dot data flows. So this is the new connector. So then I, for example, I could check now which models are using the new connector and which models are using the old, the Power BI dot data flows, the legacy connector. If I, of course, know the names of those, and then I can see, of course, yeah, which queries in which models, in which workspaces those are used. But of course, for database, I can easily see if a certain view from a database, for example, is used somewhere. I can see that across the whole tenant quickly. Yeah. And of course, this can also be exported. So I can either export everything, meaning all the tabs here, which is going to be a huge JSON file, maybe 50, 100, maybe hundreds of megabytes, or without any DAX or M expressions, only custom visuals, only DAX expressions, only M expressions, only the user access. And if you have some ideas here of what we could add, because we're constantly improving this, we'll be happy to listen to suggestions. Any questions in the chat or from you guys?
None coming through in the chat so far, Gregor. Just really positive commentary, really, to be honest. I do have a couple of questions though, if that's okay.
Sure. Yep.
Before we get into that, so we've just had one question come in from Daryl Lynch, so I'm going to give them precedence over my question. And Daryl asks, do you have visibility of deployment pipelines?
No, we don't have deployment pipelines in there yet. Maybe that's a good idea. Yeah, thanks, Daryl. I'll write that down. Maybe we can have that in a future release. Maybe what exactly are you interested in terms of deployment type pipelines? Maybe you can put it in the chat so I can understand better what you're looking for. But thanks for the suggestion.
Excellent. Great suggestion, Daryl. Please do follow up via the chat and we'll get that onto the screen. I guess then, Gregor, some of my questions, I know you mentioned earlier that this revolves around the use of the APIs. Are there any rate limits to be aware of?
Yeah, so I mean, of course, you can see we're analyzing the whole tenant, and this is somewhat gaming the APIs or whatever Microsoft is providing. So we have some limitations here. Generally, we've tested this on a large tenant, also with thousands of reports and models, and it works. So it really works also in an enterprise level. The problems, for example, that we have currently, where we have some hard limits, is really the pro workspaces. So premium workspaces, those are we can access stuff faster. We can get all the metadata faster here. But the pro workspaces and the personal workspaces, for example, those are slower. So there we have to wait a little longer to get stuff. But if we hit some errors in terms of we're getting throttled, then basically this will just slow down and try again once we have the permissions back. But it's basically made to understand when, as soon as it hits an error, basically it will slow down so that it can run smoothly after that again. Yeah, so, but
Fantastic.
yeah.
Excellent, thank you. And then Pragati, would you like to take the next question from Robert?
Yeah, so the another question that came up is like, do you have visibility into what data set uses a data flow specific table?
Good point. Not yet. And this is something I've got before. So right now, we're only seeing basically the data source, which is the flow itself, but then we don't look any further. But we've already explored looking into the tables from the data flows, because right now we already know which tables, which columns from the data set are used anywhere downstream all the way to the visual, right, on which page, whatever. And of course, we also want to go upstream more, to go to the data flows or maybe even to the data sources, which might be challenging. But the data flows would be possible, but it's we just haven't had the time yet. So right now we just have the data flow in general, but we're looking to build out also which tables from data flows are used in which models.
Yeah, because I think Robert just added to his previous question, like he's looking to understand what's the impact of a change to a particular table within a data flow. So if you change it,
Right.
that to do some kind of impact analysis. But yeah,
Maybe in 1 or 2 months, this would be there, but probably it will take us a couple weeks to build this because it's quite complex. Last time we took a look at that.
definitely. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Perfect, excellent. That's all of the questions we have from the chat at the moment, Gregor. I mean, I can follow up with a question if that's okay. And it's regarding automation within Measure Killer. Is there any automation capabilities to be able to run, for example, scheduled versions of these extracts at all?
So as you can see, it's just a Windows software, Windows program right now. It has benefits and also downsides. The downside it does that the automation is quite tricky. The upside is maybe that it's safer than running a web thing or whatever, because everything that happens inside Measure Killer basically is on your machine, and we don't get any information besides when you open Measure Killer up the first time. We get like your EIP address and check for a license or something. But we've gotten those requests before, and what we have already explored and are pretty far right now is to include Measure Killer into Fabric. So we have found a way to add the Measure Killer logic to Fabric notebooks. So basically, you will be able to call the Measure Killer functions in a Fabric notebook. This is not completely done yet, but that's basically for us the first step in automation that we have looked at. We also some time ago took a look at APIs that basically, because where this belongs is in the deployment process, actually, at least where you check how much is used anywhere, right? But the API call, yeah, has been tough, and we didn't really get so far there, so that's why we haven't built that yet. So the Fabric notebooks is the only thing that is feasible at this point, but that will only be available to some select customers at the beginning, because we still need to do a lot of testing there.
Absolutely. We can take that as breaking news, I think. You heard it here first at the Microsoft Fabric DK
That's
user
true.
group.
That's true. That's true.
Excellent. And then Pragati, we do have another question coming in as well from the chat.
Yes. So Daryl is asking, can you exclude workspaces capacity or domain from the scan?
Yeah. Yes, of course. So basically, you can see here, when I selected everything, right? I did select all here, but of course, I can also here go in and I say, okay, I have different types of workspaces. So the personal ones, I can just take out in the settings here. I can include or take out personal, deleted workspaces, also apps. Those are gone. So all three of them are actually unselected by default. I just added the personal workspaces because I like to show that. So those I can take out in the settings, and then of course to separate from my whole tenant what I want to scan and what not, I could, for example, here say, okay, I only want to scan everything in the Fabric trial. So this is the FT1 capacity, and then I can go in here, put in FT1. I click on select all. Actually, I already analyzed a lot here. Maybe let me actually re-authenticate. Then it will delete everything I did before. So now we'll start fresh. And I'm just gonna search FT1 again, FT1. So you can see now it only got those workspaces. I click on select all, and as you can see, when I take out the search, it only had those. So now I can run everything there. The only thing you have to be careful, if you run, even if you only run those workspaces, if there are reports connected to those models in other workspaces, it will get those too. So even though, let's see, do we have a model? No. Let's do the measure killer testing. So I only selected this one workspace. I'm gonna run it, and you can see now it's also granting me access for the shady workspace, even though I didn't select that, because we have a report there that is basically connected to a Power BI model in the measure killer testing workspace. So in the end, it will run for more, but just if just not no models, but only reports in case they are connected to one of those models, but in another workspace.
Okay.
Because
Excellent.
otherwise you wouldn't know what is connected. So we thought, okay, we just include this by default.
Yeah, because it has to be a lineage shown in
Yeah,
this, right, where those semantic models are being used in other workspaces or not. Yeah.
right.
Sense,
And now
yeah.
it's finished. I'm gonna take it away. I'm gonna take away the access again. And now we can see that all the models are in the same workspace, measure killer testing, but then we have reports that are also somewhere else, like basically in the ones that are, yeah, connected to those models.
Okay, cool. Just one thing that came to my mind, Gregor. I'm not sure if I missed it. So when it shows, I mean, when it scans your tenant and say at a workspace level, it shows us semantic models. Does it also show us the storage mode within those semantic models? Like if
Good
it is a
point.
direct link supported, or is it direct query? Or maybe somewhere
Yeah,
at Power BI report level, like how those semantic models were accessed and then how those reports were built.
right. Actually, we discussed this like 1 or 2 weeks ago, and I said, "Hey guys, let's add let's add the storage mode." But it was kind of a headache, so that's why we haven't added it yet. Maybe we'll take a look at that again. I would also like to have that because, of course, it's very interesting, right? To see, yeah, is it direct link? Is it direct query? Is it
Yeah,
import mode?
I mean, especially like, for example, when I look from a admin point of view, like it would be great to understand, like especially which of my models are actually using import storage modes, because kind of can help me understand more around it, or maybe which are
Right.
using the direct query mode. Yeah. Okay. That's
Yeah, we'll
yeah.
take a
Because
look
I
at
just
it.
thought I might have missed that, but then I thought I'll
No,
just ask if I
thanks.
missed it
Yeah,
somewhere.
good point.
Okay. Cool. Interesting.
Fantastic. I think that's all of the questions that we've had coming in this evening, Gregor. So absolutely fantastic demonstration there. Really appreciate you joining us to take us through that today.
Thank you so much.
And Gregor, this tenant level analysis is only available in the Measure Killer 2.3, or is it also available in 2.0?
It's available in everything, even in 1. In the it has been out for a while. Yeah, but it's
Maybe
just
I just missed
it got a
using
lot
it.
better.
Yeah. I mean, that's because when I was seeing that, I was like, oh gosh, this is pretty helpful, especially to understand. I really love the fact that you can see like who has accessed an item from my workspace to someone else, right? Because
Right.
generally from governance point of view, we avoid people sharing any content from their own workspace to some
Yeah.
users, right? So that was really a good insight. I think I might just need to go and dig down again on the Measure Killer tool.
But that's not out yet. That's really part of 2.3. That was not part of 2.2, the
Ah,
access tab. That's completely new.
okay. So that's the
So
new
there you
feature
have
that
to
will be releasing soon, basically.
exactly. So there you still have to wait until end of next week, maybe even a
Cool.
little
So
longer.
that's also exclusive on the user group. Okay. So yeah,
Excellent.
everyone, you heard about some cool features that are not there, but still be coming soon. Cool.
Yeah. So
That's nice.
actually we finished developing this week, or we will finish tomorrow actually. So it's not over yet. We have one more day, and then next week is for testing because there's still a lot of bugs. We changed a lot of things, so we still need to fix those bugs, and then we'll
Yeah.
release it. Yeah.
No, but definitely, Gregor, this is one of the most amazing tool.
Agreed.
Yeah, thanks for putting a lot of effort on
Thanks so
it,
much.
you and your team. Kudos to you
Sure.
guys.
Sure. Thank you.
Fantastic. Okay. Like I say, Gregor, thank you very much for joining us. For those of you that haven't already, go ahead, head over, download Measure Killer. Let me go back to Gregor's screen where we can see it directly. Please go ahead, download it if you haven't used it already. As we said at the top end of today's webinar, since its release, it has been one of the, in my opinion, foundational external tools to have in your Power BI development tool belt. So I can't give it any more kind of kudos than that already. So stop listening to us and go and download now.
Yeah, and trust me, this tool really has helped me in sorting out some of the messy semantic models where people ask me to sort out, where they've got like say 110 tables, crazy calculated columns, crazy measures which are literally not used anywhere, and then a consultant like me goes in to clean up their existing semantic models. So this tool is really one of the tools you should be looking at, especially when you're into such scenarios and such situations. So definitely go ahead and download it.
Excellent. And Felipe, thank you very much. Hopefully I'm pronouncing your name correctly. You already use this fantastic tool. So that's great. That's great to hear. Okay. Gregor, like I say, thank you very much for joining us. Absolutely fantastic demonstration today. And we're looking forward to having you back with us again in the future when more enhancements or even more breaking features become available as well, that we can let the secret out here.
Thank you so much, guys.
Fantastic. And thank you to everybody in the community for joining us here as well, the Microsoft Fabric UK user group. I've been your host, Leon Gordon, alongside my co-host, Pragati Jain.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day ahead. And or have a great evening. We'll see you in the next session soon.